What's going on, guys? It's your boy Scared Soldier back with another Borderlands 3 video, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you the brand new Zane build that is absolutely insane. Now there's a lot to talk about in this video. I'm going to try to break it down as best as I can, so please listen up. So let's get right into it, guys. Let's get into the whole setup of this build. So we're going to be starting off in the gear. Now the guns are pretty self-explanatory. Just get guns that are already good in the game by now. The game's been out for a year. There's ton of guns that we all know are good, so just use those. The traditional Zane guns like the redistributors, the smogs, monarchs, light shows, all those type of weapons are going to be very good for the build. Now there's going to be three anointments you're going to want to be looking for this setup, and you can use all three. So the first one is going to be while Sentinel is active, gain 100% damage as cryo. This is going to be great for when you are using the Sentinel, which I highly recommend as an action skill, because we are going to be using the MNTIS as our primary action skill all the time, and then our secondary is going to be the Sentinel. So you can take advantage of this by having this anointment up. It's going to give you some bonus cryo damage. If you do not want to be dependent on your Sentinel being active, because this is not a seen dead build, so your Sentinel will lose duration and then eventually go to cooldown. Then you can use things like on action skill end, the next two magazines will have 100% additional bonus radiation damage or whatever other element. This is awesome because it's not dependent on having your action skill active or end or whatever. It just is dependent on your MNTIS ending, which is very easy to do, and that's pretty much it. So it does depend on your action skill ending, but the MNTIS is very easy to do this. Lastly, I want you guys to have on action skill end, splash damage is increased by 200%, which is going to be super huge because that's a ton of splash damage, and that's going to be amazing for dealing with bosses or any other enemy in the game, and it's always easy to get action skill end with the MNTIS. Now, moving on, we are going to be talking about one of the most important pieces of gear, and we're going to also give you some other suggestions. So start off with the class mod. The Infiltrator is one of my favorite ones for this build because not only does it give you weapon damage and movement speed, the lower your shields are, which basically when you activate your action skill, your shields go down to 0, but it also has an anointment that's basically in the game, and that's called whenever Zane activates an action skill, he breaks his shield. So what does that mean? That means like anointments like this one right here on action skill start, activate any effect that triggers on shield break or fill, is not going to be required unless you actually want to go for a shield that has some sort of special effect on fill. Most shields have most of their special effects on break, and by just having an Infiltrator, you are going to be able to utilize this all the time. So I'm going to show you what that is going to do right here. So we're going to throw on something like this Nova burner real quick. So on shield break, we're going to produce a Nova. But look at this, we have action skill end, right? So we're not using the anointment, we're using action skill end. And by triggering our MNTIS, you're going to see that Nova go off every single time. Just like that, guys. So we don't even need this anointment no more, which is huge because now we can interchange that for action skill end, which is going to give us overall more damage. So we can rock double action skill end on our shield and grenade, which is going to be OP overall, okay? Next on the list, for the Infiltrator, the top two shields I suggest you guys use is going to be the Frozen Heart shield with action skill end, because what that's going to allow you to do with the Frozen Heart is you're going to be able to freeze enemies instantly, and that's going to allow 100% uptime on your Icebreaker. Now what I mean by 100% uptime is that typically with something like Brain Freeze, for example, which I'm going to show you real quick over here. So with Brain Freeze, typically players will slow enemies down until they're completely frozen, but by the time enemies are completely frozen, they're already down 50% health pretty much, and then you get the bonus of the Icebreaker, which applies when enemies are frozen. But with something like the Frozen Heart, the enemy from 100% health will be instantly frozen, and you'll be getting that 100% bonus damage that you're going to be getting, so bonus 42% damage against frozen enemies for the whole duration of that kill, which is much more valuable, which is why I highly suggest you do the Frozen Heart. Plus you're quite vulnerable with this build. We're not really relying too much on a barrier, so also by having some crowd control, you're also going to be extremely crazy. Now the second or the best shield I recommend with this build is going to be the Stopgap. You can literally spam immunity and have 100% immunity against all damage in the game whenever you want, constantly. So definitely the Stopgap is going to be the best shield in the game for this build, so you can never die essentially. Now, if you didn't want to use the Infiltrator, for example, you can use things like the Icebreaker for situations like bossing. You can use the Tech Spurt. I'm going to show you something about the Tech Spurt as well, because the Sentinel can go down, of course, since we're not using the Seen Dead anymore. But with the help of our MNTIS, we're going to be getting a chance to reset our cooldown. So we're going to show you right now, we have the tech spurt active, and what's going to happen is you see the duration is going down slowly. We have no scene dead, we have no enemies in front of us, and watch what we're going to do. You see, it's as easy as that to refill your Sentinel's duration. Now the Sentinel's duration is already really long. It's close to about 30 seconds. So just by clicking on your MNTIS a couple times, if you get lucky, sometimes one time, then you will instantly reset the duration whenever you want. So if you only want to use the Sentinel Cryo Anointment, then you can just throw on the tech spurt and your life is good to go. Now, anyways, going back to the, we're going to go to the skill tree now. Which is going to be good. But one more class mod we're also going to talk about is the Hustler. The Hustler is going to be really, really good because if you guys read down below, you get to stack critical hit damage up to 125% with 5 stacks. And what that means is it's kind of like Megavore. So what's going to happen is if you shoot an enemy in a non-critical hit spot, you have a 5% chance to actually deal all that damage as critical hit damage. So with all the critical hit damage you have in your purple tree, plus the fact that it's kind of like Megavore where you can have a chance to hit critical hit on an enemy's non-critical area, means that you're going to be doing a shit ton of damage, which is going to be godly. So a Hustler is also an option. And of course, there's a ton of other class mods. The Executor, you can still use the Scene Dead, but pretty much the Infiltrator is one of my favorites. I just like to show you guys that there is build diversity. Lastly, as I already addressed the Icebreaker, now we do not nearly need to use Brain Freeze anymore with a Frozen Heart Shield. And now we also can use a Snowdrift as well. And with a Snowdrift, you're going to slide shoot bosses to deal as much damage as possible. And that's pretty much that. Moving on quickly to the skill tree, we do not need the green tree whatsoever now that we don't need Brain Freeze, since we're either going to be using a stopgap or we're going to be using the Frozen Heart Shield, and this is not going to be necessary anymore, and the rest of this is pretty much useless to us. Now we're going to be moving on to the actual tree where we spec'd into, which is the purple tree. So how we broke this down was we put 2 points in Mana Focus, because basically at max stacks we're going to have over 100% accuracy, which is all we need. Then we put Heads Man's Hand, and that's going to give us critical hit damage. This also stacks twice, so that's a lot of critical hit damage, guys. Then we're also going to get Deja Vu. This is going to give us a chance to add ammo back when we hit a critical hit. It's kind of like Leave No Trace, but actually better. And then we have Commitment. Now, Commitment, it's not written on the card, but it actually stacks, I think, a couple of times, if I'm not mistaken. But anyways, this thing is very, very godly, has a ton of gun damage for you and a good cooldown rate, which is why sometimes we don't need to actually use the tech spurt at all, because we can literally, if we want to, just wait a couple seconds and our Sentinel will be back with the amount of cooldown we have. Now, Fugitive is actually really cool, but it is situational. Obviously, you're not going to be able to sprint and shoot every enemy you encounter because there's not going to be enough room, or you will bump into them, and it's not always viable. But this is really good when you have a lot of open space and you can spam rocket launchers, because Zane, his Violent Momentum and Violent Speed are procced off of default walk speed. But now the fact that you can actually sprint and shoot means that your default gun damage is actually going to go up while you're sprinting. So that's going to be insanely godly as well. Now, moving on, we have the Domino Effect. This is simply going to give us reload speed and fire rate, which is great because we're going to pair that with Violent Violence and also Violent and Cool Hand. Those two are also going to give us fire rate and also more reload speed. So our reload speed and fire rate are going to be absolutely through the roof with all of that combination. Like I said, this build is all about speed, efficiency, getting in and out, and doing a ton of damage. So that's what this build's all about. Now, we put 3 points into Sheer Will. The reason being is because I mostly use the Infiltrator, and because of that, I really want my Sentinel to come back as fast as possible. So it only takes about 4 to 5 seconds for my Sentinel to come back with the help of Sheer Will and, of course, Commitment. So that's really, really good. But then sometimes I can use the tech spurt or any other class mod in the game. So this gives me some build diversity. Now, lastly, we have the Eraser. This one is crazy how good this thing is. As long as you get enemies to line up. Specifically, what I would do if I were you is if you get a trooper and he's very close to Wotan, put your shot on the little guy and let it go through to hit Wotan, because it's going to do X amount of damage. It's going to give you 120% bonus damage to Wotan, which is pretty godly, guys. Trust me, you're going to one-shot a lot of bosses with this. Next, we have Armand Flint. Now, what's great about this is that you're going to be getting multiplicative damage, not additive. So it's 25% multiplicative damage, which is going to be great. And basically that is going to be very, very effective. Now, what we like to use is brain drain and also proliferation. Yo, I botched the hell out of that, guy. Sorry, I'm tired, but whatever. This is going to give us 2 extra charges, which is huge. So we can literally spam anything we want when it comes to our shields and stuff like that. And our action skill ends whenever we want. And then, of course, you can use, instead of brain drain, because it's not actually that good, I would definitely recommend using colder shoulder or no way out. Those are better. We have the MNTIS. Now, moving on, we are going to be in the blue tree, and then finally we have violent speed, violent momentum, which we talked about a little bit. Now, the reason why we have cold bore on this build is because we do encounter a lot of bosses in Borderlands, and just by swapping to your gun, the next shot has 200% bonus cryo damage, which is absolutely godly. What's going to happen is you're going to have more than that, because look at this, you have 200% elemental damage cryo on that one shot. Plus you have action skill N50 and action skill 50 again. So what's going to happen is, well, you can't pair 2 incendiaries, excuse me. Sorry, you have to have 2 different elements. Let me just switch that. So you're going to have more elemental damage. I'm just calculating all the elemental damage total. So we have 100% elemental damage in total. But that's not necessarily how it's calculated, but I'm just giving you an example. Plus 200% over here. So that's 300%. Plus our elemental damage off of our anointment on our weapon. So we're getting 400% elemental damage from cold bore on one single shot. That's not even counting violent momentum, slide shooting, giving us 1,000% damage with violent momentum with the snowdrift. So our gun damage with also pierced, guys, you are literally erasing everything in this game in one shot. I kid you not, if you get everything right, okay? It's literally very, very dangerous, this combination. So when we encounter bosses, we have the option to use cold bore, which is what I like. Next, we have 5 points at a cool hand. As I addressed, this and this are going to give us more DPS overall. We have the Scene Red. This is going to be great for in combination with things like the Infiltrator and other things when we're not using the Scene Dead, because we can always activate our kill skills all the time. They are constantly active and we do not need the Scene Dead. That is why we do not need Good Misfortune anymore, because Scene Red, we can literally activate our kill skills on demand, which I'm going to show you. Boom, kill skills active. I don't need Good Misfortune anymore. You see? See how that works? Good Misfortune is going to help us with our duration of our action skills, which, like I showed you guys, we get our charges back really quickly, as you guys see for our MNTIS, so we do not need that. And our Sentinel, our cooldown is extremely fast, so we don't even have to worry about that. Now, moving on, we also are going to be picking up Playing Dirty. Now, our Infiltrator does not give us any bonus points into Playing Dirty whatsoever. It is impossible. So therefore, and also the same thing with the Techspert, same thing with the Antifreeze. A lot of these class mods, Hustler, do not give us any points in Playing Dirty. So we have to put 5 out of 5 here to give us a second projectile on our next 5 shots, which is huge because that's literally double damage. Guys, this build is just getting crazier and crazier. Double damage. Plus your violent momentum, plus pierce, plus cold bore. Oh my god, it's not even normal. Imagine that you have 2 projectiles that have 200% each of them with cryo damage. Oh my god, it just doesn't make sense, guys. It's insane. Lastly, we have Death Follows Close. This is going to give us kill skill bonuses of 25% and also kill skill duration of 7 seconds, which is really, really nice. Gearbox decided to flip Scene Red and put Death Follows Close down below, which is the right move because that's what it should have been all along. And it looks a lot better this way. And again, that is our build. The augments we have for our Sentinel is the Winter's Drone and also Bad Dose, because we can weaken enemies, which makes Zane even stronger. And also we can freeze enemies, which is better for things like the Icebreaker. So I hope I broke that down to you guys quite well. These are our modifiers real quick. We have Speed Demon, Freeze Tag, Drone Ranger, and Rogue Light. So you guys may have some concerns about survivability. So we are using the Rogue Light. So it would be impossible for us to get through the whole takedown if we went down all the time. So I'm going to show you that the survivability is insane because you are killing things extremely fast. Plus, again, with things like the stopgap, Frozen Heart Shield, you guys will never die. It's impossible. Plus, you have 1 point into Salvation, which is all the survivability you guys will ever need on Mayhem level 10. So that pretty much sums up the whole entire build, guys. I hope I broke that down really well for you. Now let's get into some gameplay and show you the build. Alright guys, we're over on MNTIS, and this is going to be just a little breakdown of the build in action, and then we're going to get into some real gameplay over at the Maliwan takedown. So we have our 5 charges in our MNTIS, plus we have the Sentinel ready to go, so that's going to give us our anointment. And we also have the Frozen Heart Shield with the action skill and elements as well on our grenade. So let's go ahead, boom, keep in mind we're using the Infiltrator. and just obliterating enemies. Get that action skill in, freeze that guy instantly. This is all with the infiltrator. We're not even using the Seen Dead. We're not using any of that stuff. Look how fast my sentinel is already back with that cooldown, so we don't even need no Seen Dead or Good Misfortune. Here, want to get frozen real quick? Look at this. Insta frozen with the frozen heart, and that's it. Pretty simple. So we're gonna go over to the Maliwan takedown and absolutely destroy enemies. See you over there. Okay guys, so we're at the Maliwan takedown and we're going off already. We're freezing enemies with the frozen heart shield, creating crowd control, which means enemies are not targeting us since they're frozen. As soon as they are frozen, the icebreaker is going to be active, giving us that extra bonus damage to those frozen enemies, which is huge. And all in all, we're just going ham. You see that we're killing enemies extremely quickly. The Smog isn't even considered one of the best SMGs in the game, and it is doing a ton of work for us. And what we're going to be showing you is features of this build. So we're going to go against the Kraken right now, and you're going to see us going to be swapping weapons a couple of times before we get there, and that is to proc Cold Bore. So that's the gargoyle in action real quick, but we just swapped weapons. We have Cold Bore active with that 200% cryo damage with action skill end, and that's an easy one shot, as you guys can see. Very simple. Now we're going to be going onto the bridge, and we're also going to be showing you that sprint feature called the fugitive. It's in the purple tree, that 1 point. So what we're doing here with the plague bearer is we're literally walking, freezing enemies with the frozen heart shield to keep them in still, and we're just sprint shooting with the plague bearer. And what this is doing is, first of all, we're getting bonus damage to the frozen enemies from the icebreaker. We're also getting bonus splash damage 200% by calling in our action skill end, and we're getting bonus damage through violent momentum, violent speed, and fugitive combined, because fugitive is allowing us to shoot and sprint. And since Zane's damage is mostly based off of how fast he moves, the more damage he does, we're moving at sprint speed and shooting, so you can just put 2 and 2 together, and we're just absolutely demolishing all the enemies. So I wanted to show you what that looks like in practice, and it absolutely wipes. Now you see we're having no trouble killing enemies and also no trouble surviving. Our health is relatively full all the time, and by the way, our shield only goes down when we call in our action skill, because the infiltrator is breaking our shield. Now right here we are at Wotan, and pretty much we are destroying him real quick. We just used the Mongol right over there. We're going to switch over to the back burner, and we're going to run at him and slide shoot with that snowdrift like I was talking about earlier, giving us a ton of damage with Cold Bore, giving us 200% cryo damage on our shot because we swapped to our back burner, and that is the result of one shot on Wotan. And that's pretty much it with the frozen heart as well. You guys are going to see right here, we can just freeze everything, including the upper half, making it just super easy to kill enemies. But that's pretty much it for the Zane build, guys. I hope you give it a try. Let me know what you thought in the comment section. I'll catch you in the next one. It's your boy Scared Soldier signing out. Peace.